We were together for 4 years. 4 years may not sound like much, but for me, it felt like a whole lifetime. Enough time to grow from a naive girl into a woman who eventually learned to see the truth, even when the truth hurt more than anything else. When I first met him, I thought fate had finally given me the person I'd always dreamed about. He was caring, funny, the kind of man who could hold me in his arms and make the whole world disappear. We could sit for hours on a bench near my house talking about our future, building plans together. I believed with all my heart, this is the one. I still remember those first months. I felt like I was flying. He would text me in the middle of the night, "I can't sleep without you. You're my everything." And I believed every single word. Our love felt untouchable, like nothing could ever break it. But time has a cruel way of stripping off the rose-colored glasses. At first it was just small things. He would come home from work and say, "You wouldn't believe the day I've had. I just need to relax a little." And he'd open a beer. I didn't think much of it. It's normal, I told myself. Everyone does it sometimes. I even sat next to him, hugged him, tried to laugh it off. It felt harmless. But slowly those little things began to pile up. 1 beer turned into 2. Then there were bottles of vodka or brandy left over from friends. And little by little, I started noticing that even an ordinary weekend felt empty to him if there wasn't alcohol involved. I told myself it was fine. I defended him when people started to whisper, "He drinks too much." I insisted, "He's just tired, he just needs to blow off some steam." I believed that love meant staying, even when things got hard. But deep inside, uneasiness began to grow. His eyes when he was sober and his eyes after drinking, they belonged to 2 completely different men. At first, I tried not to notice, but the difference was impossible to ignore. His voice grew sharp, his movements clumsy, and every time I saw him drunk, something in me cracked a little more. I kept silent. I held on to the memory of those first months, when he was kind and gentle. I thought, if I just waited long enough, he would go back to being the man I'd fallen in love with. But slowly I began to realize that man was disappearing, and someone else, harsher, selfish, trapped in the bottle, was taking his place. Inside me 2 voices fought. One said, "You need to leave before this destroys you." The other whispered, "What if he changes? What if tomorrow he wakes up different?" And I chose the whisper. I chose to stay. I chose to love, even where love had already started to wound me. That was my first mistake. And the mistakes after that, they would only hurt more. They say habits creep in quietly. At first, you don't notice them, but one day you look back and realize that habit has taken control of everything. That's how it was with him. Alcohol was just a detail at the beginning. He'd come home from work and sigh, "You wouldn't believe my boss today. Let me have a drink, I'll feel better." And he'd pop open a beer. Nothing shocking. I even thought it was normal. But over the months, the drinking became part of every evening. 1 beer became 2. And soon enough, there were stronger bottles sitting in the fridge. A weekend without drinking seemed boring to him, almost impossible. I tried to talk to him. "Don't you think this is getting a little much?" I asked carefully. He laughed it off. "Come on, I'm not an alcoholic. I just need to let off steam sometimes." And every time I wanted to believe him, I told myself that love meant patience, that I had to close my eyes to his flaws, because everyone has them. I clung to the memories of him bringing me flowers for no reason, calling me in the middle of the night just to say he missed me, holding me so tightly I thought nothing could ever go wrong. But those moments grew rarer. His gaze began to change. When he was sober, he was still my guy, warm, kind, alive. But after drinking, his eyes went dark. There was anger in them, or emptiness, and something that made me uneasy. I began to feel ashamed. When we went out with friends, I prayed he wouldn't drink too much. I watched every move, counted every glass, trying to prevent the disaster before it started. I turned from being his girlfriend into being his guard. But even that wasn't enough. My family noticed. My brother asked me once, "Hey, does he always drink this much?" I snapped back, "No, you just don't know him like I do. He's a good guy." I defended him. But in my heart, I was already doubting my own words. Sometimes he would come home, smiling, with a little gift, hugging me and whispering, "You're my sunshine. I can't live without you." And I'd melt. I'd think, "Here he is, my real man. Everything will be fine." But the next day, he might stumble in late at night, drunk, muttering cruel words he wouldn't even remember in the morning. It felt like riding a roller coaster, up and down, joy and pain, hope and despair. I was trapped between who he was and who he was becoming. And slowly I realized I wasn't living anymore. I was waiting for the next slip, the next fight, the next broken promise. Anxiety became my shadow. It followed me everywhere. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe freely. And yet, I still stayed. Because deep down, I still believed love could change him. And that belief was the very thing destroying me. It happened on a night that was supposed to be fun. A night to forget the stress of work, to laugh with friends, to dance. That's what I thought when he asked me to come with him to a party. I remember how I got ready that evening. I stood in front of the mirror, fixing my hair, putting on the dress he once said made me look like the only girl in the world. I wanted to impress him, to feel like we were still us, the couple who could turn heads when we walked in together. The music was loud, the lights dim, people laughing and moving all around us. At first, it was fine. He had a drink in his hand, but he still smiled at me, kissed my cheek, whispered, "You look beautiful tonight." And for a while, I believed it might be one of those rare nights when everything went smoothly. But as the hours slipped by, I saw the shift in him. One drink turned into 3, then into 5. His words slurred, his laugh grew louder, and the warmth in his eyes started fading into something else, that dark glaze I had come to fear. I tried to hold his hand to keep him close. "Maybe we should slow down," I whispered, half pleading. He pulled away, chuckling. "Relax, babe. It's just a party. Don't ruin the vibe." And then it happened. I was only a few steps away talking to a friend when I turned my head and saw him, my boyfriend, the man I defended to everyone, his arms around another girl, his lips pressed against hers. For a second, the world stopped. The music faded, the lights blurred, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. My stomach dropped, my chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I froze, hoping, praying that I was seeing it wrong, that maybe she had leaned in, maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But no. His hands, his body, his choice. It was all too clear. I walked up, my legs shaking beneath me. "What the hell are you doing?" My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. He turned, eyes glassy, smirk tugging at his lips. "Babe, calm down. It's nothing. Just a joke." A joke? That's what he called it. The girl pulled away, awkward, embarrassed, muttering something as she disappeared into the crowd. But the damage was already done. It wasn't about her. It was about him. The man who swore I was his everything, showing me in front of everyone how little his words actually meant. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not there. Not in that room full of strangers and fake smiles. "We're leaving," I said through clenched teeth. He rolled his eyes, but followed me out, stumbling as he walked. Outside, the cold air hit us, and so did my anger. "How could you? Right in front of me? Do you even realize what you did?" He laughed, actually laughed, shoving his hands into his pockets. "You're overreacting. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything." But it meant everything to me. I wanted to scream, to shake him until he understood the humiliation, the betrayal that crushed me in that moment. Instead, I stood there, shivering, my chest tight with pain. And then he reached for me, clumsily wrapping his arms around me. "Come on, babe. Don't make this bigger than it is. You know I love you. You're the only one." And here's the part that still hurts the most. I let him hold me. Because deep down, I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that the alcohol was to blame, that the man I loved was still in there somewhere, trapped but not gone. On the ride home, I stared out the window, silent, while he dozed off beside me. My reflection looked back at me in the glass, and I barely recognized myself. Why did I stay? Why did I forgive? The answer was simple. I was terrified of losing him, even though I was already losing myself. That night, as I lay awake beside his sleeping body, I whispered to myself, it was just one mistake. People make mistakes. It won't happen again. But deep down, a small voice, the one I tried so hard to ignore, whispered back, this is only the beginning. It was a family dinner. Something simple, something warm. My parents had invited us over, and I thought it would be a good chance for him to show the best version of himself. I wanted them to see what I once saw in him, the charm, the laughter, the man I had fallen in love with. He promised me, before we even left the apartment, "Don't worry, babe, I'll behave tonight. No drinks, I swear." And for a moment I believed him, but when we arrived, I noticed the shift almost immediately. My brother had brought a couple of beers, just casual, nothing heavy. He offered one to him, and despite his promise, he accepted. "Just one," he said, winking at me, as if that would erase the broken word. One turned into 2, then 3. His laughter grew louder, his jokes sharper, edged with something cruel. I watched him from across the table, my stomach sinking. My brother, protective as always, caught the change too. He didn't like it. Didn't like the way my boyfriend's words grew reckless, the way his hand gripped my arm a little too tightly when he pulled me closer. "Hey," my brother said finally, his voice calm but firm, "maybe that's enough for tonight. You don't want to ruin dinner." It was meant as a simple warning, a gentle push to stop things before they got worse. But he didn't take it that way. He slammed his beer bottle on the table, eyes narrowing. "What did you just say?" The room went quiet. My parents froze, forks halfway to their mouths. I held my breath. My brother didn't back down. "I said that's enough. She doesn't need to deal with you like this." And that was it. The spark that lit the fire. He shot up from his chair, the legs scraping harshly against the floor. His fists clenched, his face twisted with anger I had never seen directed at my family before. "Don't you dare tell me what to do! You think you can control me? You think you're better than me?" Before I could react, he lunged. My brother stood too, meeting him halfway, and suddenly the two of them were shoving, yelling, fists flying. Plates clattered, glasses shattered. My mother screamed. I tried to pull them apart, tears streaming. Down my face, shouting their names. But in that moment, he wasn't the man I loved. He was a storm, violent, uncontrollable, blind with rage. It took my father to break them apart, his voice booming, his hands strong as he pushed them back. My brother's lip was bleeding, my boyfriend's shirt was torn, his chest heaving with drunken fury, and then he looked at me. For the first time, his anger turned my way. His eyes, dark and wild, locked onto mine as if I was the enemy. "This is your fault," he spat, "always making them think I'm not good enough, always turning them against me." My heart broke right there, in that dining room filled with broken dishes and shattered trust. He stormed out before anyone could stop him, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother cried quietly. My father shook his head in disappointment, and my brother wiped the blood from his mouth, looking at me with both anger and pity. And me? I sat there, trembling, humiliated, terrified of what I was becoming in this relationship. I wanted to believe he'd change, that this was just the alcohol talking, but deep down, I knew. He had crossed another line. That night, I lay in bed alone, the echo of his words haunting me. "This is your fault." And still, I stayed. By then, I had learned to recognize the signs, the glassy eyes, the restless movements, the way his voice grew louder, competing with everyone else in the room. This time, it was at a friend's wedding. A beautiful evening, flowers, music, people dressed in their best. I had been excited for weeks, planning my outfit, picturing us dancing together under the lights like we used to. At first, everything seemed fine. He held my hand, whispered compliments, even pulled me close during the ceremony. For a fleeting moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, he could prove me wrong this time. But the reception came, and with it, the open bar. It started slowly, as always. One glass of champagne, then another. I tried to distract him, pulling him onto the dance floor, laughing, kissing his cheek. For a little while, it worked. But soon he slipped away, and when I found him again, he was surrounded by a group of guys, already several drinks deep, his tie loosened, his words sharp and reckless. I approached, placing a hand on his arm. "Come on, let's dance again." He shook me off, annoyed. "Not now, I'm talking." The men around him laughed, but it wasn't the friendly kind of laughter. It was mocking, goading. One of them made a comment about me. Something crude, something disgusting. I froze, my cheeks burning. Before I could react, he turned on the guy, rage exploding out of him. "What the hell did you just say about her?" The table went flying, glasses shattering, as he shoved the man back. Voices rose, chairs screeched, people gasped. Within seconds, it was chaos. Him shouting, swinging, completely out of control. I tried to stop him, grabbing his arm, begging, "Please, stop, you're making a scene." But he shoved me away, hard enough that I stumbled, almost fell. And that was the moment. The moment I felt the eyes of everyone in the room on us. Friends, strangers, even the bride and groom, all watching me with pity, with judgment, with whispers I couldn't silence. Security rushed in, dragging him outside as he cursed and fought against them. And me? I stood there, trembling, my face burning with shame, tears threatening to spill. When I finally found him outside, he was slumped against the wall, his shirt torn, his knuckles bleeding. He looked up at me, eyes unfocused, and laughed bitterly. "Did you see that? Nobody talks about you like that. I defended you. I did it. For you." But it wasn't for me. None of it was. It was about him, his pride, his anger, his addiction to chaos. On the ride home, he passed out in the back seat of a friend's car, while I stared out the window, silent, shattered. I wondered how many more times I could forgive, how many more excuses I could make. And the worst part? A tiny part of me still whispered, maybe next time will be different. But deep inside, I knew the next time would only be worse. It had been building for months. Every fight, every drunken night, every broken promise, they were all leading here. And though I didn't know it at the time, this was the moment everything shattered. We were at home, just the two of us. No parties, no weddings, no family dinners. Just us. I thought maybe that would make things safer, quieter. But I was wrong. He had been drinking again. I could smell it the moment he walked through the door. Sharp, heavy, impossible to ignore. His steps were uneven, his words already slurred. I braced myself, the way I always did, preparing for whatever version of him would stumble in that night. At first, it was just words. "Why are you always nagging me? Why can't you just let me live?" I tried to stay calm. "I'm not nagging. I'm worried. This has to stop. You're destroying yourself. And us." But the more I spoke, the angrier he became. His voice rose, his face twisted, his hands clenched into fists. "Stop telling me what to do. You think you're better than me? You think you can control me?" My heart pounded. I could feel the fear creeping up my spine, but I forced myself to stand my ground. For the first time in a long time, I didn't back down. "I'm not going to live like this anymore. I can't keep saving you while you're tearing everything apart. If this doesn't stop, I'm done." That's when it happened. His eyes darkened, his body tensed, and he took a step toward me. His hand lifted, not in love, not in affection, but in rage. For a split second, I thought he was going to hit me. Time slowed. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, feel the cold rush of terror in my veins. And in that frozen second, I saw it all. The man he was, the man I thought he could be, and the man he had become. And I knew. I wasn't safe. Not anymore. Not with him. I backed away, my voice shaking but firm. "No, this ends here. I won't let you touch me. I won't let you destroy me." He froze, his hand still half raised, his chest heaving. Then he dropped it, muttering, "You're so dramatic. You'd never leave me. You need me." But he was wrong. In that moment, something inside me snapped to us, not from weakness but from strength. I realized I didn't need him. I didn't need his apologies, his excuses, his chaos. I deserved peace. I deserved love. That night, when he finally passed out on the couch, I sat in the bedroom alone, staring at the packed suitcase I had hidden weeks before just in case. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't doubt myself. I knew I was done. The morning after was quiet. Too quiet. He was still asleep on the couch, one arm hanging off the side, his breath heavy with the sour smell of alcohol. I stood in the doorway, watching him, and for the first time, I didn't feel love. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. And that nothing was powerful. I walked into the bedroom, pulled out the suitcase I had hidden weeks before, and started filling it. Every fold of clothing into that bag felt like a piece of my life being reclaimed. With each item, I felt lighter, stronger. Halfway through, he stirred, his voice groggy, confused. "What are you doing?" I didn't stop. I didn't even look at him. "I'm leaving." He sat up, blinking as if trying to process my words. Then he laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You're not leaving. You always say that, but you never do. You need me." This time I turned to face him. My voice was calm, but firm. "No, I don't need you. I don't need your promises, your excuses, your apologies. I don't even need your love, because it isn't love. It's just convenience for you, and I'm done." For a moment, he looked stunned, then angry. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched, but he didn't move. Maybe he knew deep down that I was serious, that something had shifted in me he could never control again. I zipped up the suitcase, grabbed my keys, and walked to the door. He called after me, his voice rising, desperate now. "You can't do this! After everything, you're just going to walk away?" I paused, my hand on the doorknob, my heart pounding. "Yes, because I finally understand. Loving you means losing myself, and I won't do that anymore." And then I walked out. The air outside was cold, sharp, but it felt like freedom. For the first time in years, I could breathe without the weight of his chaos pressing on my chest. I didn't look back. The first night after I left felt strange. I lay in a bed that wasn't ours, in a room that wasn't ours, and yet for the first time in years I felt safe. The silence was unfamiliar, almost too heavy, but there was no shouting, no bottles clinking, no footsteps stumbling in at 3 a.m. Just silence and peace. But peace has its own weight, because silence also leaves space for thoughts, for memories, for doubts. I replayed it all in my mind, the laughter we once shared, the promises he whispered, the way he used to hold me like I was the only thing that mattered. I wanted so badly to cling to those memories, to let them erase the ones where he betrayed, humiliated, and hurt me. But memories don't change reality. The truth was clear. The man I fell in love with was gone. Or maybe he was never really there at all. Maybe I had only loved the idea of him, the potential I thought he had. The days that followed were a blur. I went to work, smiled for people, pretended to be okay. But inside, I was learning to breathe again, to walk without fear. To remind myself that leaving him wasn't failure, it was survival. I heard about him through friends. Stories of how he showed up at parties drunker than ever, how he started fights with strangers, how he stumbled through life like a shadow of himself. Each story hurt, not because I missed him, but because it confirmed what I already knew. He was on a path I couldn't follow. Sometimes I felt guilty, like maybe I had abandoned him. But then I remembered the way his hand almost struck me, the way he shoved me at that wedding, the way he kissed someone else right in front of me, and the guilt faded, replaced by something stronger. Clarity. For the first time, I wasn't drowning in his chaos. I was standing on my own ground, shaky but solid, and that ground was mine. It didn't take long for his world to spiral out of control without me. Friends who once laughed at his jokes began to avoid his calls. Invitations grew fewer, doors quietly closed. But there was always one place that would take him back. The clubs, the bars, the late-night parties where the music was too loud to hear the truth and the alcohol was too cheap to feel the pain. I wasn't there that night, but I heard the story. He went to a crowded club, already unsteady before he even walked through the doors. He drank until his words blurred, until his body swayed to the rhythm of the bass, more from dizziness than from dancing. And then, just like always, his temper found a target. Another drunk man bumped into him, spilling a drink. It was nothing, just a clumsy accident in a room full of chaos. But for him, it was enough. He shoved the man, words slurred and angry, and the stranger shoved back. Within seconds, fists were flying, bottles were breaking, and the crowd was screaming. By the time security dragged them apart, his face was bloodied, his body bruised. The fight didn't end on the dance floor. It ended in an ambulance, with him being taken to the hospital. I found out the next morning when my phone started buzzing. Call after call. His name flashing across the screen, again and again. I didn't answer, but then the messages started. I love you. You're the only one who understands me. I need you. And then, the twist of the knife. This is your fault. You left me when I needed you most, but don't worry. I forgive you. Forgive me. Those words made me laugh, bitter and broken all at once. After everything he had done, the betrayals, the fights, the humiliation, the fear, he wanted me to believe that I was the one who needed forgiveness. I blocked his number. One click, and the endless buzzing stopped. One click, and the weight lifted just a little more. And in that silence, I finally understood. He wasn't my responsibility anymore. He never really was. He was an empty space I had been trying to fill with love, with patience, with hope. But no matter how much I poured into him, he remained hollow. And I was done being consumed by that emptiness. Looking back now, it feels like a lifetime ago. 4 years of my life. 4 years of laughter and tears, of hope and heartbreak, of holding on when I should have let go sooner. I used to think love meant saving someone. That if I just loved hard enough, if I just forgave enough, if I just endured enough, I could heal him. But love isn't about losing yourself to fix someone else. Love isn't about surviving constant storms. Real love doesn't make you afraid. Real love doesn't leave you in tears night after night. Real love doesn't raise a hand to you, or betray you in front of strangers, or blame you for the pain they created. Leaving him was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not because I lost him, but because I had to find myself again. I had to learn that my worth was never tied to his chaos, that my value wasn't measured by how much pain I could endure. And when he called me from that hospital, bruised and broken, still blaming me for everything, that was the moment I knew for certain I wasn't his savior, I wasn't his excuse, and I wasn't his victim anymore. I blocked him, and with that, I closed the door on a chapter that should have ended long before. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been where I was. Maybe you're still there now, holding on to someone who hurts you, hoping they'll change, believing your love is enough. Please hear me. It's not your job to save them, it's your job to save yourself. Because at the end of the day, my ex wasn't the love of my life. He was a lesson. A painful, unforgettable lesson that taught me the most important truth of all. I deserve better. And so do you.